The distress signal came through on a Tuesday afternoon, cutting through the usual static of deep space communications. Captain Hyun-woo Park was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alert sounded across the bridge of the Earth Coalition vessel, Indomitable. His crew snapped to attention, fingers flying across their control panels as they tried to locate the source. "Sir, it's coming from the Galaxy system," reported the communications officer, her voice tight with concern. "They're broadcasting on all emergency channels." Hyun-woo set down his cup and straightened in his command chair. He had heard of the Galaxy. Everyone in the galaxy had. They were one of the oldest civilizations in known space, peaceful beings who glowed with soft bioluminescence and had never once engaged in war. Their culture had survived for over 50,000 years, built on philosophy, art, and scientific advancement. They were the gentle giants of the Galactic Coalition. "Put it on screen," he ordered. The view screen flickered to life, and Hyun-woo felt his breath catch. The being who appeared before them looked ancient and exhausted. His bioluminescent glow, which should have pulsed with vibrant blues and greens, was dim and flickering like a dying candle. His name was Loomis, according to the translation software, and he was a Galaxy elder. "Please," Loomis began, his voice barely above a whisper. "If anyone can hear this message, we need help. Our sun is dying. A neutron star has entered our system and its gravity is tearing our solar system apart. We have less than 8 months before our worlds become uninhabitable. 8 billion of my people will die." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what a neutron star was, a collapsed stellar core with gravity so intense it could warp space itself. If one had entered the Galaxy system, there was almost nothing anyone could do. "We have asked the Coalition for help," Loomis continued, and now there were tears flowing down his luminescent face. "Every species with the technology to assist us has refused. They say it is too expensive, too dangerous, too unlikely to succeed. They have left us to die." His voice broke. "But I must try one more time. If there is anyone out there who will help us, please. We are begging you." The transmission ended. The bridge remained silent for a long moment. "Sir," said Lieutenant Tae-young Lee from the weapons station, "we should report this to Earth Command and continue our patrol. The Coalition has already made their decision." Hyun-woo stared at the blank screen where Loomis had been moments before. He thought about 8 billion people, mothers, fathers, children, waiting to die because no one would help them. He thought about what it meant to have the power to save lives and choose not to use it. "Navigation," he said quietly. "Set a course for the Galaxy system. Maximum speed." "Sir?" Tae-young stood up from his station. "We have orders to patrol this sector. If we leave our post..." "Then we leave our post," Hyun-woo interrupted. "Send a message to Loomis. Tell him we're coming." The communications officer hesitated only a moment before her fingers danced across her console. "Message sent, sir." Hyun-woo knew this decision would have consequences. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Coalition. They were still learning the complex politics of interstellar relations, still trying to prove themselves to species that had been traveling the stars for millennia. Ignoring the Coalition's collective decision could damage Earth's reputation. It could make them look foolish or naive. But as he sat in his captain's chair, watching the stars streak past as the Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light travel, Hyun-woo realized he didn't care. Some things were more important than politics. 3 days later, they arrived at Earth. The Indomitable wasn't equipped to help the Galaxy alone. They would need the full support of their homeworld. Hyun-woo requested an emergency meeting with the United Earth government, and to his surprise, it was granted immediately. He stood in the Great Assembly Hall in Geneva, addressing President Da Yun-han and the entire Earth Council. Behind him, on a massive screen, played the recording of Loomis's plea. "They need our help," Hyun-woo said simply. 8 billion people are going to die if we do nothing. "Captain Park," said Counselor Jin-ho from the Defense Committee, "we sympathize with the Galaxy situation. Truly we do. But every advanced species in the Coalition has deemed this mission impossible. What makes you think Earth, the youngest, Spacefaring civilization can succeed where ancient empires have failed? Hyunwoo met his gaze steadily. Maybe we can't. Maybe we'll fail. But I'd rather die trying to save them than live knowing we could have helped and chose not to. President Da-Yun-Han leaned forward in her seat. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much hardship. She had led Earth through the difficult years of first contact, through the challenges of joining a galaxy that didn't always welcome them. Dr. Ji-won Kim, she said, you're our chief stellar physicist. Is there any possible way to help the galaxy? A woman stood up from the scientific advisory section. Dr. Ji-won Kim was young for her position, barely 35, but she had already made significant contributions to humanity's understanding of stellar mechanics. She pulled up a holographic display that showed the Galaxy system. There is one theoretical possibility, she said, highlighting the neutron star's trajectory. If we could alter the neutron star's course by just a few degrees, it would pass through the system without causing catastrophic damage. But to do that, we would need to create an explosion powerful enough to affect an object with that much gravitational mass. How powerful? Asked the president. Ji-won took a deep breath. We would need to use every antimatter warhead in Earth's defense stockpile, all of them detonated in a precise sequence. Even then, our success probability is less than 20%. The chamber erupted in arguments. Voices rose and fell debating the wisdom of such a mission. Earth had spent decades building that antimatter stockpile. It was their primary defense against hostile alien species. Without it, Earth would be vulnerable for years while they rebuilt their arsenal. Ambassador Subin Choi, Earth's representative to the Galactic Coalition, stood to speak. I must point out that if we do this, we will be openly defying the Coalition's decision. We could face diplomatic consequences, economic sanctions, perhaps even expulsion from the Coalition itself. President Da-Yun-Han listened to all the arguments. She looked at the cost-benefit analyses, the military assessments, the diplomatic predictions. Then she looked at the frozen image of Loomis on the screen, his dim light and desperate eyes. She stood up and the chamber fell silent. I joined politics because I believed humans should be better than our worst instincts, she said. I believed we should build a society based on compassion, not just survival. If we turn our backs on the Galaxy, what does that say about us? What kind of species do we want to be? She paused, looking around the chamber at each council member. Humanity will help the Galaxy. We will commit our antimatter stockpile, our defense fleet, and whatever resources are necessary. Yes, it will leave us vulnerable. Yes, we might fail. But at least we will have tried. At least we will know that when someone needed help, we gave everything we had. The vote was called. It wasn't unanimous. There were those who believed the risk was too great. But the majority agreed with their president. Earth would help. When Captain Hyunwoo transmitted the news to Loomis, the old Galaxy could barely speak. His bioluminescence brightened for the first time in months, pulsing with colors of joy and disbelief. You will really come? He whispered. You will really try? We're already preparing the fleet, Hyunwoo assured him. Hold on. We're coming. As news spread across Earth, something remarkable happened. Volunteers flooded the recruitment centers. Scientists, engineers, pilots, medics, everyone wanted to help. They knew the risks. They knew many of them might not come home. But they came anyway. Dr. Ji-won Kim assembled the best stellar physicists from every Earth university. They worked around the clock, refining their plan, calculating detonation sequences, preparing for every possible scenario. The Galactic Coalition watched in stunned silence. Some species mocked humanity's naivety. Others watched with genuine curiosity. A few, very few, felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries. Hope. In his small quarters aboard the Indomitable, Captain Hyunwoo looked at a photo of his family back on Earth. His daughter had sent him a message. Dad, everyone at school is talking about what you're doing. They say you're going to save an entire civilization. I'm so proud of you. He smiled and tucked the photo away. In 30 days, the fleet would launch. In 60 days, they would reach the Galaxy system. And then they would attempt something that had never been done before. They would try to move a star. Outside his window, Earth gleamed blue and beautiful in the darkness. Somewhere out there, 8 billion Valaxi waited in the shadow of death, hoping that the strange young species called humanity would arrive in time. Hyunwoo made a silent promise to them. They would arrive. They would try. They would give everything they had, because that's what humans do. The morning the fleet prepared to launch, Earth held its breath. Every news channel across the planet showed the massive formation of ships assembling in orbit. There were military vessels, transport ships, medical frigates, and at the center of it all, specially modified cargo ships carrying humanity's entire stockpile of antimatter warheads. Dr. Ji-won Kim stood in the operations center at Earth Command, staring at screens filled with calculations and simulations. She had barely slept in 30 days. Her team had run the numbers thousands of times, adjusting variables, testing scenarios, searching for any way to improve their chances. The success probability had climbed from 17% to 19%. It wasn't much, but it was something. The detonation sequence must be perfect, she explained to the assembled officers. Each warhead needs to explode at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right position. If even one is off by a fraction of a second, the entire operation fails. The neutron star continues on its path, and the Valaxi die. Commander Bora Shin listened carefully from her position near the back of the room. She was a veteran pilot with 15 years of service, known for her steady hands and calm demeanor in crisis situations. She had volunteered to lead the squadron that would deliver the warheads into the neutron star's radiation zone. Everyone in the room knew it was essentially a suicide mission. The radiation levels alone would be lethal. How long do the pilots have after they reach the detonation coordinates? Bora asked. Ji-won hesitated. Based on our models, the radiation will begin affecting ship systems within minutes of entering the zone. The pilots will need to position the warheads, arm them, and retreat as quickly as possible. But realistically, she trailed off. Realistically, we won't all make it out. Bora finished for her. That's fine. We all knew what we were signing up for. That afternoon, Bora sat in her small apartment and recorded a video message for her daughter, Hye-jin, who was 10 years old. The girl was staying with Bora's parents while her mother was on this mission. Hey, sweetheart, Bora said to the camera, forcing a smile. By the time you see this, I'll be gone. I want you to know that I love you more than anything in this world. I also want you to understand why I'm doing this. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Right now, there are 8 billion people who are going to die unless someone helps them. And I have the skills to be one of those someones. So I have to go. Not because I want to leave you, but because I can't live with myself if I don't try. She wiped a tear from her eye. You're going to hear people say that we were foolish, that we threw our lives away for strangers. Don't listen to them. We do this because someone needs help. That's enough. That's everything. I hope you grow up to be the kind of person who helps others even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The message was transmitted to social media before she left. Within hours, it had been viewed by billions across Earth and had somehow made its way onto the galactic information networks. Species across the galaxy watched a human mother explain to her child why she was willing to die for aliens she had never met. The fleet launched exactly on schedule. 247 ships carrying over 50,000 personnel. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching Earth shrink behind them as they accelerated toward the Valaxi system. All ships reporting ready, sir, reported the communications officer. We're receiving good luck messages from all over Earth. And sir, we're also receiving messages from other species in the coalition. Other species? Hyunwoo raised an eyebrow. I thought they all refused to help. These are smaller civilizations, sir. Species that don't have the resources to mount a major operation, but they're sending what they can. Medical supplies, spare parts, technical data. One species called the Helion just transmitted detailed scans of the neutron star that their probe network captured. It's more recent than anything we had. Hyunwoo felt a warmth in his chest. Send them our thanks. Every bit helps. The journey to the Valaxi system took 28 days. During that time, Dr. Ji-won Kim and her team continued refining their plan based on the new data from the Helion. The picture of the neutron star was clearer now, and what they saw was troubling. The star was more unstable than they had thought. Its magnetic field was fluctuating wildly, which would make positioning the warheads even more difficult. But there was no turning back. Lieutenant Tae-Young Lee spent those days training the defense teams. The Indomitable and the other military vessels would need to protect the warhead carriers and the evacuation fleet from any threats. There were rumors that some coalition species didn't want humanity to succeed. If Earth managed to save the Galaxy, it would shift the balance of galactic politics. Some powerful civilizations preferred things the way they were. His instincts proved correct on the 15th day of the journey. "Sir, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," the tactical officer called out, reading 20 vessels Kreth design. The Kreth were a reptilian species known for their aggressive territorial expansion. They held significant power in the coalition and had been among the loudest voices arguing against helping the Galaxy. Hyunwoo had heard whispers that they saw the Galaxy situation as an opportunity. Once the gentle species was gone, their resource-rich worlds would be up for grabs. "Hail them," Hyunwoo ordered. A Kreth commander appeared on screen, his scaled face twisted in what might have been a smile. "Human vessel, you are carrying dangerous weapons through coalition space. We are here to ensure these weapons do not pose a threat to galactic security. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded." Hyunwoo's jaw tightened. "These weapons are being transported to save the Galaxy. We have no intention of stopping." "Then we will stop you," the Kreth commander replied, and the transmission ended. The Kreth ships moved to intercept the antimatter convoy. Alarms blared across the human fleet as weapon systems powered up. This was exactly what they had feared. They were about to be attacked. And if those antimatter warheads were damaged in combat, the resulting explosion could destroy half the fleet. All ships. "Defensive formation," Hyunwoo ordered. "Protect the convoy at all costs." Lieutenant Tae-Young Lee was aboard one of the escort frigates when the Kreth opened fire. He watched the energy beam streak through space toward the convoy ships. "All power to forward shields," he commanded his crew. "Get between them and the convoy." His ship shuddered as it took hit after hit. Other human vessels did the same, forming a protective wall with their own hulls. The Kreth were more advanced, their weapons more powerful, but they hadn't counted on one thing: human stubbornness. "Sir, shields at 20%. His tactical officer reported. "We can't take much more of this." Tae-Young looked at the convoy behind them, at the precious cargo that meant the difference between life and death for 8 billion Galaxy. He thought about Commander Bora Shin's message to her daughter. He thought about why they were all out here in the first place. "Then we don't need to take much more," he said quietly. "All power to engines." "Ramming speed, sir?" His crew looked at him in shock. "You heard me. The Kreth flagship is the key. If we take it out, the others will lose coordination. Plot an intercept course, and get everyone to the escape pods now." "That's an order." His crew hesitated only a moment before scrambling to obey. Tae-Young sat alone in the command chair as his frigate accelerated toward the Kreth flagship. He had served in the Earth Navy for 12 years. He had always known he might die in the line of duty. He just never imagined it would be while protecting aliens he had never met. His last transmission was to Captain Hyunwoo. "Finish it, sir. Make it mean something." The frigate impacted the Kreth flagship at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a newborn sun. The Kreth fleet, leaderless and stunned by the human sacrifice, broke off their attack and retreated. The convoy was safe. But Lieutenant Tae-Young Lee was gone. On Earth, his family received the news in their home in Busan. His mother wept. His father stood silently by the window. His younger sister, only 16, posted a message on social media that went viral. "My brother died protecting people he never met. If you think that makes him a fool, then I'm proud to come from a family of fools." The fleet continued toward the Galaxy system. Morale was shaken by Tae-Young's death, but it also strengthened their resolve. He had given everything to get them this far. They would not let his sacrifice be meaningless. When they finally arrived at the Galaxy system, what they saw took their breath away. The neutron star was visible even from the outer planets, a tiny point of impossible density that warped the light around it. The Galaxy worlds were already suffering. Tidal forces were creating massive earthquakes and tsunamis. The star's atmosphere was being stripped away by the neutron star's gravity. And there were 8 billion Galaxy down there, waiting. "All evacuation ships begin rescue operations immediately," Hyunwoo ordered. "Warhead Squadron, prepare for approach. Dr. Kim, how are we looking?" Ji-won's voice came through from the operation ship. The situation is worse than we predicted, Captain. The neutron star's magnetic field is even more chaotic up close. I'm recalculating detonation coordinates now. Stand by. Commander Bo-Ra Shin suited up in her flight gear and made her way to her ship. Around her, Commander Bo-Ra Shin had flown through asteroid fields, navigated plasma storms, and survived combat situations that would have killed lesser pilots. But nothing in her training had prepared her for what she saw as her squadron approached the neutron star. Space itself was broken, light bent at impossible angles. Her instruments screamed warnings as gravity fluctuated wildly around them. The neutron star was barely larger than a city, but it contained more mass than most regular stars. Its surface was so dense that a single teaspoon of its material would weigh billions of tons. All pilots, maintain formation, Bo-Ra said into her comm, keeping her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. 3 ships were lost in the first hour. They flew too close to a gravity well and were simply crushed, compressed into something smaller than a coin in the blink of an eye. Bo-Ra watched their signals disappear from her screen and forced herself to keep flying. On the Indomitable, Dr. Ji-won Kim worked frantically at her station, her fingers flying across multiple screens. The neutron star was behaving even more erratically than her models had predicted. Every few minutes its magnetic field would spike, sending waves of deadly radiation through the area. Captain, I need to adjust the detonation sequence, she said to Hyunwoo. The star's rotation is creating a precession effect we didn't account for. If we detonate at the original coordinates, the explosion will be off by 3 degrees. 3 degrees? Hyunwoo asked. How much does that affect our chances? Ji-won closed her eyes briefly. It drops our success probability from 19% to 9%. 9%. Less than 1 in 10 chance of success. The bridge fell silent. Everyone had known this was dangerous, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real. Can we improve those odds? Hyunwoo asked. Only if we get the warheads closer to the star's surface. But that means the pilots will have to fly deeper into the radiation zone. They won't survive. Hyunwoo opened a channel to Bo-Ra's squadron. Commander Shin, we have a problem. Bo-Ra listened as he explained the situation. When he finished, there was a long pause. Then she spoke, her voice calm and clear. Sir, we all volunteered knowing we might not come back. If getting closer means a better chance of success, then that's what we'll do. Bo-Ra, Hyunwoo said, using her first name for the first time. You have a daughter. I know, sir, and I want her to grow up in a galaxy where people help each other, where doing the right thing matters. The only way to give her that galaxy is to finish this mission. She paused. Sir, I have a request. When this is over, tell Hye-jin that I was thinking of her. Tell her that her mom helped light a star. Hyunwoo felt his throat tighten. I promise. The squadron pushed deeper into the radiation zone. Their ship's systems began failing. Control panels flickered and died. Life support systems started giving error messages. The pilots could feel the radiation poisoning their bodies, even through their suits and their ship's shielding. Position 1, ready? Called out the first pilot, a young man named Dong-hyun who had celebrated his 23rd birthday last week. Position 2, ready, said another pilot, a woman named Yoon-hee who had left behind 3 children. One by one, the pilots reported in, positioning their antimatter warheads at the exact coordinates Dr. Ji-won Kim had calculated. Some of them died at their controls, succumbing to the radiation before they could report. Others held on through sheer willpower. Meanwhile, the evacuation operation was underway on the Valaxi homeworld. Captain Min Ji-song commanded one of the massive transport ships designed to carry cargo. She had volunteered to use her ship to evacuate Valaxi families instead. The scenes on the planet below were heartbreaking. The Valaxi were a peaceful species who had never experienced war or disaster on this scale. They didn't understand what was happening. Parents held their children close. Elders moved slowly, confused and frightened. The massive earthquakes had already destroyed many of their cities. We need to move faster, Minji said to her crew. We can fit more people if we convert the cargo bays. Captain, those bays aren't designed for passengers, her first officer protested. There's no life support, no seats, nothing. Then we give them oxygen masks and they stand, Minji snapped. I am not leaving people behind because we don't have seats. Strip every non-essential system. Make room for more Valaxi. Her crew obeyed. Word spread through the evacuation fleet about what Minji was doing. Other captains began doing the same. They packed Valaxi into every available space. The humans gave up their own quarters, their mess halls, even their medical bays. They slept in corridors and gave their beds to frightened Valaxi children. One human medic, Dr. Sang-hoon Park, was working in a Valaxi hospital when the building began to collapse. The planet's gravity stabilizers were failing, and the structure couldn't handle the stress. He had just loaded 300 Valaxi patients onto transport sleds when the ceiling started to come down. "Go," he shouted to his team. "Get them to the ships." "But doctor, you need to come too." "There's no time, go now." He stayed behind, using his body to hold open an emergency exit while his team evacuated the patients. The building collapsed on top of him. He was 42 years old. He had a wife and a son back on Earth. He never saw them again. Back in the radiation zone, Commander Bo-Ra Shin was preparing to arm the final warhead. Her ship was barely functioning. Half her controls were dead. She could taste blood in her mouth. Her vision was starting to blur. The radiation had cooked her body from the inside out. But she could still move her hands. She could still complete the mission. "Dr. Kim," she transmitted, her voice weak. "Final warhead is in position. All systems are failing. I need to arm it manually." "Bora, if you arm it manually, you won't have time to get clear," Ji-won said, her voice breaking. "The detonation sequence will—" "I know," Bora interrupted. "Just tell me what to do." Ji-won walked her through the process, tears streaming down her face as she did so. Bora's hands shook as she worked, but she didn't stop. She thought about Hyejin. She thought about the 8 billion Valaxi waiting below. She thought about all the people across the galaxy who needed to know that someone would help them when they were in trouble. "Warhead armed," Bo-Ra reported. "Transmitting detonation code now." "Bo-Ra, I'm so sorry," Ji-won whispered. "Don't be," Bo-Ra replied. "I gotta save a world today." How many people can say that? She looked at the photo of Hyejin one last time. "Tell her I love her. Tell her I did something that mattered." She transmitted the detonation code. 16 antimatter warheads exploded in a carefully choreographed sequence across the neutron star's gravity well. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from neighboring star systems. For a few seconds, there was a light in space brighter than any sun. On Earth, billions of people watched the live feed. Parents held their children. Strangers in the streets grabbed each other's hands. The whole world waited. Dr. Ji-won Kim stared at her screens, watching the data pour in. The neutron star's trajectory was shifting, slowly, barely, but it was shifting. "It's working," she whispered. Then louder, "It's working. The star is moving, 3.2 degrees off its original course." Cheers erupted across the Indomitable's bridge. People hugged each other and wept. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had actually done it, but then alarms started blaring. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the detonation created a shockwave. It's spreading through the system. It's going to hit the evacuation fleet in approximately 4 minutes." The cheers died instantly. Hyun-woo looked at the display showing the shockwave's path. It was massive, a wall of energy and radiation that would tear through anything in its path. The evacuation fleet was directly in its way, and they still had thousands of Valaxi on the surface waiting to be picked up. If the fleet jumped to safety now, they could save themselves and the Valaxi already aboard, but thousands more would be left behind to die when the shockwave hit the planet. Ambassador Soo-bin Choi, who was monitoring the mission from Earth, opened a direct channel to Hyun-woo. She understood the situation immediately. "Captain," she said, "I am giving you direct authority from the President and the Earth Council. Whatever decision you make, we stand behind you. The choice is yours." Hyun-woo looked around his bridge at his exhausted, terrified crew. They had already lost so much. They had already sacrificed so much. They had saved the Valaxi. They could leave now with their heads held high, but thousands would die. Thousands who had made it this far, who had survived everything else, would die because the humans had left too soon. He thought about Commander Bo-Ra Shin, who had given her life to position those warheads. He thought about Lieutenant Tae-young Lee, who had crashed his ship to protect the mission. He thought about Dr. Sang-hoon Park, who had held up a collapsing building so others could escape. They had given everything. How could he give anything less? "All ships," he said, his voice steady and clear. "Maintain position. Continue evacuation operations. Combat vessels form a defensive screen between the shockwave and the evacuation fleet." "Sir," his first officer said quietly. The combat vessels aren't designed to withstand that kind of energy. They'll be destroyed. I know, Hyunwoo replied. The first thing Captain Hyunwoo noticed when he opened his eyes was that he was still alive. That wasn't supposed to happen. The shockwave should have torn his ship apart. He should have died instantly. Sir? A voice called out from somewhere in the smoke-filled bridge. Sir, can you hear me? Hyunwoo tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his body. Several of his ribs were broken. But he was breathing. The ship still had life support. Report. He managed to croak out. His tactical officer pulled himself up from the floor, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Sir, I don't understand it. The shockwave hit us, but we survived. The ship is badly damaged, but we're still here. The entire combat fleet is still here. That's impossible, Hyunwoo said. The energy levels should have... Captain, you need to see this, the communications officer interrupted, pointing at a functioning screen. On the display, Hyunwoo saw something that made his eyes widen. Between the combat fleet and where the shockwave should have been, there were dozens of ships. Ships from species he recognized and some he didn't. They had formed a massive shield, using their own vessels to absorb the worst of the shockwave's energy before it reached the human fleet. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. It's Threxian. The Threxian Empire was one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They had remained neutral in galactic politics for over 10,000 years. They never intervened in other species' affairs. They certainly never helped anyone. Until now. An elderly Threxian appeared on the damaged view screen. His scaled face showed something that might have been a smile. Captain Park, I am High Commander Velthar of the Threxian Imperial Fleet. We could not allow you to face that shockwave alone. Not after what you did for the Galaxy. Not after what you showed the galaxy. Hyunwoo was speechless. You saved us. You put your own ships at risk to save us. You taught us something important, Captain. You reminded the galaxy what it means to help those in need. We had forgotten. Many species had forgotten. You have reminded us all. More reports came in over the next few hours. Against all odds, 70% of the human fleet had survived. The evacuation fleet had completed its mission. All 8 billion Galaxy had been rescued. The neutron star was moving safely away from their system. In 6 months, they could return home. But the cost had been terrible. 14,000 humans had died. Commander Bo-Ra Shin and her entire squadron were gone. Lieutenant Tae-Young Lee's sacrifice had saved the convoy. Dr. Sang-Hoon Park had died holding up a collapsing building. And countless others had given their lives in ways large and small. Earth's defense fleet was shattered. Ships drifted in space, too damaged to repair. The antimatter stockpile was completely gone. Earth was now vulnerable in a dangerous galaxy, but they had saved 8 billion lives. On Earth, the memorials began immediately. In Seoul, a monument was erected listing every name of those who had died. People came from across the planet to pay their respects. They brought flowers, candles, and letters to the fallen. 10-year-old Heejin Shin stood in front of her mother's name, carved in stone. Her grandparents stood beside her, their hands on her shoulders. She held the video message her mother had recorded before the mission, the one that had been viewed by billions across the galaxy. She was a hero, her grandfather said softly. I know, Hyejin replied, and when I grow up, I'm going to be just like her. Ambassador Subin Choi attended an emergency session of the Galactic Coalition. She was exhausted, grieving, and angry at the species who had stood aside and let the Galaxy die, angry at the Kreth who had attacked them, angry at a galaxy that seemed to value survival over compassion. She stood before the assembled representatives of hundreds of species and spoke. You want to know why we did this? Why we risked everything for strangers? Because when we looked at the Galaxy, we didn't see aliens. We saw people who needed help. And we have a saying on Earth, what good is survival if we lose what makes us human? She paused, looking around at the gathered representatives. For thousands of years, this coalition has operated on cold logic, cost-benefit analysis, strategic considerations. And where has that gotten you? A galaxy where 8 billion people can face extinction, and no one lifts a finger to help. A galaxy where compassion is seen as weakness. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. Others looked angry. A few looked thoughtful. Humanity is the youngest species here, Subin continued. We have the least experience, the smallest fleet, the weakest economy. But we saved the Galaxy, not because we're stronger than you, Not because we're smarter, but because we cared. We cared enough to try. She gathered her things to leave. I don't know if that makes us heroes or fools, but I know this: we sleep well at night. Can you say the same? The chamber erupted in arguments after she left, but her words had struck a chord. Young species who had always followed the lead of older civilizations began questioning their role. Why hadn't they helped? What kind of galaxy did they want to live in? The Valaxi, overwhelmed with gratitude, made an unprecedented offer. They would share their most precious technology, their knowledge of biological engineering and consciousness transfer, secrets they had protected for 50,000 years. It was a gift beyond measure, worth more than entire star systems. But more than that, they made a declaration at the next coalition assembly. Loomis, the elderly Valaxi who had made the first desperate plea, stood before the gathered representatives. In 50,000 years of existence, we have learned many things, he said, his bioluminescence pulsing with emotion. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have watched species evolve and grow, but never in all those millennia have we seen anything like what humanity did for us. He gestured to where Ambassador Subin Choi sat. These humans, so young in galactic terms, showed us that age does not equal wisdom. That power does not equal strength. They showed us that the truest measure of a civilization is not how it treats its friends, but how it treats strangers in desperate need. Loomis paused, his ancient eyes scanning the chamber. We propose that humanity be elevated to a leadership position in the coalition. They have earned it, not through conquest or wealth, but through compassion. The chamber fell silent. For a species less than 500 years old to be nominated for coalition leadership was unprecedented. It had never happened before. 17 species immediately seconded the motion. All of them were younger civilizations who had watched humanity's actions with hope. The older, more powerful species were divided. Some saw it as a threat to their power. Others saw it as an opportunity for change. The vote would come later, but the fact that humanity was even being considered changed everything. Meanwhile, on a Valaxi refugee station, a human medic named Ji-Eun worked alongside Valaxi doctors to treat the injured. She had been on one of the evacuation ships and had stayed behind to help, even though Earth had offered to bring all humans home. A young Valaxi child approached her, carrying a drawing. It showed a human and a Valaxi holding hands surrounded by stars. At the bottom, in carefully written English letters, it said, "Thank you for saving us." Ji-Eun knelt down to the child's level. "You're welcome, little one. That's what friends do." "But we weren't friends before," the child said. "You didn't know us." "We didn't have to know you to help you," Ji-Eun replied. "Sometimes being friends starts with being kind." The child hugged her, and Ji-Eun felt tears stream down her face. This was why they had done it. This moment right here. This child who would grow up because humans had cared enough to help, but not everyone in the galaxy was happy about what humanity had done. In a dark corner of space, the Dominion Empire watched the events unfold with growing concern. The Dominion was a ruthless civilization built on conquest and domination. They had been expanding their territory for centuries, taking what they wanted from weaker species. They had noticed Earth before, a young species with surprising military technology and a growing space presence. But Earth had been careful, staying within coalition protection, avoiding confrontation. Now, Earth was vulnerable. Their fleet was shattered. Their defenses were gone, and they had made themselves a symbol of something the Dominion hated: compassion. Emperor Ralseth watched the footage of the Valaxi rescue mission and felt his blood run cold. Not from fear, but from anger. This idea that species should help each other, that compassion mattered more than strength, it was dangerous. If it spread, it could undermine everything the Dominion stood for. Humanity must be taught a lesson, he declared to his military council. They must learn that compassion is weakness, that helping others leaves you vulnerable, and we will be the ones to teach them. Plans were made. Fleets were assembled. The Dominion would strike Earth in 6 months once the initial attention had died down. They would crush this symbol of compassion and remind the galaxy who truly held power. But something unexpected happened. The Dominion's intelligence networks picked up concerning information. Species across the galaxy were mobilizing, not to attack, to defend. High Commander Velthar of the Threxian Empire had made a public declaration. Any species that attacks humanity while they are vulnerable will be considered an enemy of the Threxian Empire. We owe them a debt. We will repay it. 6 months passed like a countdown to war. Earth worked frantically to rebuild its defenses, but everyone knew they wouldn't be ready in time. The antimatter stockpile was only 10% restored. The damaged fleet vessels were being repaired, but many would never fly again. But something remarkable was happening around Earth. Ships were arriving. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Species from across the galaxy were sending their fleets to defend the planet that had saved the Galaxy. Captain Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable II, a brand new ship built with combined human and Threxian technology. He watched the massive fleet assembling around Earth and felt his throat tighten with emotion. Ships from 47 different species, all here to protect humanity. "Sir, we're receiving the Dominion fleet's approach vector," his tactical officer reported. "They'll be here within the hour. Count as 300 warships, 300 against several thousand." The Dominion had expected an easy target. What they would find instead was the largest unified fleet in galactic history, Emperor. Ralseth watched his view screen as his Dominion fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. He expected to see a defenseless blue world ready for conquest. Instead, he saw an armada that made his blood run cold. "How many ships?" he demanded. "Over 4,000, Emperor. Multiple species. The Threxians are here. The Galaxy, species we've never even heard of." Ralseth's claws dug into the armrests of his command throne. This was impossible. Earth should have been alone, vulnerable. How had they assembled this force? A transmission came through. It was Captain Hyun-woo. "Dominion Fleet, this is Captain Hyun-woo Park of the Earth Defense Force. You came expecting to find us alone. You came to punish compassion, to prove that kindness is weakness. But you've made a mistake. You've shown the galaxy exactly what you are. Bullies who only attack those they think can't fight back." Ralseth snarled. "You think this show of force changes anything, human? You are still weak. You still gave away your defenses for strangers. That was foolish." "Maybe," Hyun-woo replied. "But those strangers are here now, and so are the friends we made by doing the right thing. So I'll ask you once, leave in peace or face the consequences." "The Dominion does not retreat," Ralseth spat. "We will destroy you and everyone who stands with you." But before he could give the order to attack, another transmission interrupted. This one was from Ambassador Subin Choi. "Emperor Ralseth, I understand your empire is suffering from a plague in your outer colonies. The Crimson Death, I believe it's called. Thousands of your people are dying every day. Children, families, soldiers, all dying because you have no cure." Ralseth's expression changed to one of shock.
"How do you know about that?"
"That information is classified. We know many things," Subin replied calmly. "But more importantly, we have the cure. The Galaxy shared their biological engineering technology with us. We've developed a treatment that will stop the plague. We can save your people." "This is a trick," Ralseth said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "It's not a trick," Dr. Ji-won Kim said, appearing next to Subin on the transmission. "Look at your data feed. We're transmitting the complete molecular structure of the cure right now. Your scientists can verify it. It's real. It will work." On the Dominion flagship, medical officers scrambled to analyze the data. Within minutes, they confirmed it. The human cure would work. It would save millions of Dominion citizens. "Why?" Ralseth asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why would you help us?" "We came here to destroy you." "Because your citizens didn't," Subin replied. "Your sick and dying people didn't choose this war. They're suffering because of a disease, not because of anything they did wrong. Why wouldn't we help them?" Ralseth sat back in his throne, his mind reeling. His entire worldview was crashing down around him. The Dominion had always taught that strength was everything, that compassion was weakness, that you took what you wanted and helped no one. But these humans, these weak, young humans, were offering to save his people even as he pointed weapons at their homeworld. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "We are your enemies." "You don't have to be," Hyun-woo replied. "Take the cure, go home. Save your families. End this before people die unnecessarily." For the first time in Dominion history, an emperor faced a choice that military strength couldn't solve. He thought of his own daughter lying in a medical facility, dying from the Crimson Death. He thought of the millions of other Dominion citizens suffering the same fate. He closed his eyes and made his decision. Dominion fleet. Stand down. All weapons to safe mode. He opened a private channel to Hyun-woo. Captain Park, I came here to destroy you for your weakness. Instead, you offer to save my people. I will face execution for disobeying my orders to attack. But I will die knowing my daughter might live. Thank you. You're not going to face execution, Hyunwoo said firmly. You and your family are requesting political asylum on Earth, effective immediately. That's not a request, that's what's happening. We don't let people die for doing the right thing. Ralseth stared at the human captain in disbelief. You would grant me asylum? After I came here to kill you? You made the right choice when it mattered, Hyunwoo replied. That's what counts. The Dominion fleet withdrew, carrying the cure that would save millions of their people. But something else happened in the months that followed. Something that shook the Dominion Empire to its core. News of what Emperor Ralseth had done spread across the Dominion. Citizens learned that their emperor had been willing to make peace to save them, and that the humans had helped despite being enemies. They learned that their government had kept the plague secret, had been willing to let millions die rather than ask for help. The people were outraged. They were inspired. They were awakened. Within a year, the Dominion underwent a revolution. The old imperial government was overthrown by its own citizens. They established a democracy, their first in over 2,000 years, and they asked former Emperor Ralseth, who had been living on Earth in asylum, to lead them. You learned compassion from the humans, the Revolutionary Council told him. Now teach it to us. Ralseth accepted. He became the first elected leader of what was now called the Dominion Republic. His first act was to formally apologize to Earth and the Valaxi. His second was to apply for membership in the Galactic Coalition. The event became known across the galaxy as the day the war never happened. It was studied in schools, analyzed by philosophers and debated by politicians. How had humanity done it? How had they turned an enemy into an ally without firing a single shot? The answer was simple but profound. They had shown that compassion was stronger than fear, that helping others, even your enemies, could change the galaxy. The Galactic Coalition underwent massive restructuring. The old guard who had refused to help the Valaxi found themselves losing power. Younger species, inspired by humanity's example, pushed for reforms. The coalition created a new organization called the Office of Compassionate Action, dedicated to helping species in crisis. 70 species joined immediately. President Da-Eun Han was asked to oversee its creation, but she declined. She was tired. The weight of sending 14,000 people to their death still haunted her dreams. She retired to her small hometown, a village in the mountains of Korea. She spent her days tending a garden and drinking tea. But visitors came from across the galaxy. They called her the president who taught the galaxy to care. She welcomed them with quiet kindness, never seeking glory, never asking for recognition. Hyejin Shin graduated from the Earth Naval Academy at age 18. She had spent 8 years preparing for this moment. Driven by the memory of her mother's sacrifice, Captain Hyunwoo personally pinned the insignia on her uniform. Your mother would be proud, he told her. Hyejin looked up at the stars through the Academy's observation dome. She's watching. I know she is, and I'm going to make her proud every single day. She was assigned to the Indomitable II as a junior officer. On her first day aboard, she visited the ship's memorial wall, where the names of Commander Bora Shin and all those who had died in the Valaxi rescue were engraved. She placed her hand on her mother's name and made a silent promise. She would carry on the legacy. She would help others. She would give everything when it mattered. Dr. Ji-won Kim received the Valaxi Star of Honor, the highest award their civilization could give. She was the first human ever to receive it. The ceremony was held on the Valaxi homeworld, which had been rebuilt and repopulated. 8 billion Valaxi attended via broadcast, all of them wanting to honor the scientist who had saved their world. Ji-won donated the prize money to create a scholarship fund for young scientists across all species. She called it the Bora Shin Memorial Scholarship for Compassionate Science. Its motto was simple: we rise by lifting others. On the anniversary of the Valaxi rescue, a monument was unveiled on their homeworld. It was massive, visible from space, a sculpture of 2 hands clasped together. One human hand, one Valaxi hand united in friendship. The inscription read in every galactic language, "They gave everything. We give our eternal gratitude. May all species learn from humanity. The strongest hearts are those that give freely." Loomis, The elderly Valaxi, who had made the first desperate plea, stood at the ceremony,